It was a normal spring night. Her windows were open for the first time in months. The air smelled like wet earth, and something else, something she couldn't explain. She said she stopped in the middle of her kitchen, just standing there, holding a mug, listening, because it felt like someone had just been there. And when she finally understood why she woke up at 2:43 a.m., there was already a glass of water waiting for her. Spring is when everything comes back. Flowers, birds, life, and sometimes things that were hidden, things that were waiting. Every story you're about to hear starts the same way, with someone who thought they were safe, someone who told themselves everything was fine, someone who left their windows open. Because why wouldn't they? Nothing ever happens until it does. My name is Alex, and I've been running this channel for over 2 years now. In that time, I've read hundreds of real stories, some sent at 3 a.m. by people shaking while typing, others from people who waited years before speaking. Some can't be verified, but some are too real to ignore. This is one of those. The first story comes from a woman named Lauren. She was 27, LIVED, alone in a rented house on the edge of a small town in Ohio, one of those places where everyone knows each other, and that's why you feel safe. She had just moved in after a divorce, a fresh start. Spring felt right. At first, the house felt unfamiliar. Then slowly, it became hers. The third step creaked. The radiator hummed at night. The bathroom door never fully locked, like we always do. She adjusted. We decide which sounds belong to the house and which don't. Most of the time, we're right. It started in April. She got home around 6 p.m., unlocked the door, walked inside. Nothing looked wrong, just a feeling, like the air was different, heavier, like someone had just left. She checked the locks, the windows. Everything was fine. She poured wine, watched TV, and went to bed. She woke up at 2:43 a.m. She looked at her phone before she understood why. Then she heard it from the kitchen, a very quiet sound, like someone placing a glass on the counter. She didn't move, counted, told herself it was nothing. Silence. Then it happened again, the same sound. She sat up, grabbed her phone, turned on the flashlight. The kitchen was empty, but there was a glass on the counter, filled with water, and she hadn't put it there. She told herself it was nothing, that she forgot. Sleepwalking, maybe. She poured it out, went back to bed, but that night, she locked her bedroom door. For 2 weeks, nothing happened. And that was the worst part, because she started to believe it wasn't real, until one evening, she came home, and her bedroom window was open. She knew she had closed it. It had rained that morning, but now, it was slightly open, like someone left a gap. She didn't call the police. She called a friend. They checked everything. Nothing. The friend stayed over. In the morning, they laughed it off. Wind, loose, latch. It wasn't fine. 3 days later, Lauren found something on the inside of that same window. A small handprint. From the outside, the house was ground level. She called the police. They said it was unclear, could be old. They left. She moved out a week later, left most of her things behind. She lives in a different city now. She checks her locks every night, not because she's scared, at least. That's what she says. But because now she knows something. That feeling, like someone had just been there, isn't always your imagination. And that glass of water, I keep thinking about it. How long it takes to pour, how quiet you'd have to be, and how whoever was inside that house had enough time to do exactly that, and leave. If stories like this keep you up at night, you're in the right place, because the next story happens in broad daylight, and apparently, that doesn't make it any safer. I woke up at 4 a.m. to someone trying my bedroom door. But the worst part wasn't that. It was the key I found on my kitchen table, because I never took it out, and my doors were still locked. Marcus was 32. He lived in Washington State, about 2 hours outside Seattle, in a quiet town surrounded by forest. The kind of place where mornings were covered in fog and nights were completely silent. His nearest neighbors were across a field. He worked from home as a translator. Good money. No reason to leave the house for days at a time. He liked it that way, said the silence helped him focus. And he wasn't paranoid. He made that very clear. He didn't check locks twice. He didn't worry about break-in. Nothing like that ever happened where he lived. He'd been in that house for 5 years. He knew every sound it made. The fridge, the pipes, the floorboards. If something was off, he would notice. This happened in early May. Warm during the day, but still cold after sunset. Around 9 that night, he finished work, opened a beer, and sat on his couch with his laptop. At 10, he heard footsteps on the porch. Not random noise. Not an animal. Wait. Slow, steady steps, moving along the side of the house. He muted his laptop and didn't move, one hand resting on his phone. The steps stopped. He waited. 5 minutes, maybe more. Nothing else. And then he did what most people do. He explained it away. A neighbor, a hunter, someone cutting through the yard. He stood up, walked to the window, and pulled the curtain aside. No one was there, but the side gate, the one he always kept closed, was open, halfway. And this is where he says he made a mistake. He didn't feel scared. He felt irritated, like someone had crossed into his space. So instead of calling anyone, he grabbed a flashlight, went out through the kitchen door, and walked around the house. Nothing. The gate was open. The woods were dark, completely silent. He closed it, checked around one more time, then went back inside, locked the doors, finished his beer, and went to sleep. At 4 a.m., something grabbed his bedroom door handle. Hard, not slow, not careful, just one sharp pull, like someone testing if it was locked. He froze, couldn't breathe, couldn't move, just stared at the handle in the dark. He told himself, if it moves again, I'm calling the police. If it doesn't, maybe I imagined it. The handle didn't move again. He stayed awake until morning. At 6, he opened the bedroom door. The hallway was empty. He checked every room, every window, every locked dot. Nothing was missing. Nothing was disturbed, except one thing. His spare house key was sitting on the kitchen table right in the center. He kept that key in a drawer, always. He hadn't taken it out. He couldn't even remember the last time he saw it. He called the police immediately. They checked the house. No signs of forced entry. No broken windows. No damage. They told him maybe the key fell out. Maybe he moved it without realizing. Formally, nothing had happened. That same day, he changed every lock and installed cameras. And that night, for the first time in 5 years, he couldn't sleep because someone had a key, or someone had been inside long enough to find it, or worse, someone wanted him to know they could get in. He still lives in that house, but, he says, it feels different now, like it isn't fully his anymore, like there are parts of it he doesn't trust. And when he looks back, he says the worst part wasn't that night, it was earlier, hearing footsteps, and deciding it was nothing, opening the door, and going outside instead of calling for help, going to sleep, and convincing himself everything was fine. Because that's what we all do. We hear something, we pause, and then we tell ourselves, it's nothing. And sometimes it is. But sometimes, you wake up, and something has already been inside your house. I heard my dead mother open the back door, and I almost went to check who it was. Sarah was 35. She had just lost her mom to cancer. It happened fast, from November to February. In March, she moved into her mother's house in Vermont to sort through everything, decide what to keep, decide what to sell. The house still smelled like her, lavender, and something wouldn't. The kind of smell that used to feel like home, but now felt like it was stuck in her throat every time. She walked in. She planned to stay for 2 weeks. First week was normal, boxers, phone calls, decisions, things that made her cry, things that made her laugh. That's how grief works then. Early in the second week, Wednesday night, she heard it. The back door opening, not opening fully, just that sound, that soft shift of wood against the frame. She knew that sound. Her mom always came in through the back door after gardening. It was the same exact sound. Sarah stood up and walked into the kitchen. The door was closed, locked. She stood there for a few seconds, heart racing, telling herself it was nothing. Old house. Temperature changes. Wood expanding. She went back to the living room, but she didn't turn the volume back up. She just sat there, listening. The next morning, she found something on the back porch. Her mom's mug, white with small apples on it. The same mug she had packed into a box 2 days earlier. It was sitting outside, clean, empty, like someone had placed it there. She stared at it for a long time. Then she called her sister. Not because she was scared, even though she was, but because she needed someone else to exist in that moment with her. Her sister offered to come, Sarah said. No, she said she'd handle it. That night, around 8 p.m., she was in her mom's bedroom, going through the nightstand. That's when she found the journal, small, leather, something she had never seen before. She sat on the floor and started reading. She read for a long time. By the time she looked up, it was almost midnight, and the room felt different, heavier. That's when she heard footsteps outside, on the back porch, slow, even back and forth, like someone walking and waiting. She didn't move. She just sat there on the floor, holding the journal, listening. The steps didn't stop. She counted them, 12, maybe 15 passes. Then she grabbed her phone and called the police. 2 officers arrived. They searched everything, the yard, the porch, around the house, nothing, no tracks, no signs, no one. One of the officers stood on the porch and said something she still remembers. There are deer out here. They come close in spring. He had the right to say that. Maybe it was true, but those steps sounded human. They left around 1 a.m. Sarah locked every door, turned on every light. She sat on the couch, wrapped in her mom's blanket, and stayed there until morning. Didn't sleep, just listened. The next morning, she called her sister again. This time, she said, come. Her sister arrived that day. They finished packing the house together. Sarah didn't tell her about the footsteps. She just said she wanted to be done faster. But there's one thing she told. Later, on the last day, while they were carrying out the final boxes, Sarah went back into her mom's room one last time, just to stand there, just to say goodbye, and she saw it. The mug. The same one, sitting on the WINDOWSILL. Again, she says there's a logical explanation. Maybe she moved it and forgot. Maybe her sister did. Maybe there were 2 identical mugs, but there's a part of her that doesn't believe that. That part says something else. What if the house didn't want her to leave? What if the sounds, the door, the footsteps, the mug, weren't a threat, just something that didn't know how to communicate? She sold the house. A young family bought it. She saw them the day she handed over the keys. A little girl running under the apple trees in the yard. Sarah stood there watching and didn't know if she was crying for her mother, for the house, or just because spring does something to people. Because spring makes things open. We open windows. We leave doors unlocked. We relax because nothing ever happens. But danger doesn't care about seasons. It just waits until we decide everything is fine. And that's the part that stays with me. Not the sounds, not the house, but how easy it is to feel something is wrong and convince yourself it's nothing.